देश के मुख्य आर्थिक सलाहकार वी अनंत नागेश्वरन ने हाल ही में एक पॉडकास्ट में हिस्सा लिया जिसमें उन्होंने देश की तेजी से बढ़ती जीडीपी और आर्थिक विकास से जुड़े तमाम मुद्दों पर अपने विचार रखे और बताया कि आने वाले दिनों में भी भारत की आर्थिक नींव किस तरह से मजबूत है।
India's dependence on imported energy. Shouldn't rupee stability be a strategic priority in that respect then?
I think in general, a stable currency is always in any country's interest. I mean, I think there is no question about it, regardless of whether you are import dependent on energy or not. But obviously, when you take the exchange rate alone and then say energy imports alone and say a stable rupee will be good, yes, of course, your imported crude oil will cost more in rupee terms if the rupee is weaker. But at the same time, you have to set off against, for example, until recently, the Indian rupee was very overvalued vis-a-vis Chinese yuan. Because in the last 3 years, Chinese currency has been slightly depreciating. More importantly, their economy was suffering from deflation. It still suffers from deflation. Therefore, on an inflation-adjusted basis, their currency had become more competitive against the Indian rupee. So we were more incentivized to import from China. But now, as the Indian rupee has now closed that gap with Chinese yuan, to that extent, imports from China will become more expensive. So we will be dissuaded. So where there is avoidable imports, and those avoidable imports are much more in value than the energy. So you are saying you have to import crude oil anyway. That becomes costlier now. I agree with you. But there are much more portion of imports which are not energy related, which are price sensitive, and they will become costlier now.
Yes.
Therefore, you will be dissuaded from importing and you will look at domestic options or options from elsewhere. And your exports, now that you have signed the free trade agreements with the European Union and the UK, and you are becoming more competitive. So you have to take a totality of view. Only by looking at the energy imports, what you say is absolutely right.
I have questions on behavioral economics because what I wanted to ask you was that which behavioral trait of Indians helps in our economic growth, which the world doesn't see or hasn't noticed about India?
No, adaptability and innovation.
You said, yeah.
Innovation. And innovation comes along with that. And I think, yeah, more than, and also the spirit of entrepreneurialism. These are the three factors which are in our favor. But equally, I can list other factors which are also inhibiting.
So, yeah, exactly. What holds us back?
No, for example, we still do not operate as a very high trust society.
Okay.
There is trust, very high trust within small groups, communities. My group, my community, my kinship, my network. But outside that, we don't. That is why we have created a society with so much of attestation, confirmation, notarization. It adds to cost, to time, everything. So one of the important factors that are inhibiting, apart from the one that I said are positive, negative ones are we are low trust in general. And second, because of the high degree of uncertainty, we are a large country, with therefore everybody feels I will not get my share unless I kind of be extremely ruthlessly competitive and take shortcuts. And therefore it also makes us very short-term oriented. I think we are not by nature long-term oriented. There are rational explanations for it, but that prevents you from investing for the long term, both in terms of skill and health and also in the businesses. So we are relatively short-term oriented.
Okay.
These are the two inhibiting factors.
All right. Today's youth, if we do reach and become a developed country, what is it that today they are disbelieving, which that day they will believe?
That's a very interesting question. And I think I would even say it doesn't depend on a particular metric, whether like a GDP or per capita income or anything like that. I think you can say you have achieved the developed country status when every generation thinks that its succeeding generations will have it better than them. If that belief sets in, then you have already become a developed society.
Yeah, that's a nice way of saying.
Okay. Whereas today's developed countries are actually, I would say, they are on the way down not because their material quality of life is deteriorating, no, but succeeding generations are feeling less and less confident about their future. Whereas in India, the level of optimism is still high. Many of those Edelman survey and all that stuff, many of them talk about that societies youngsters in India, despite all the challenges they face, are actually optimistic. So the more and more every generation feels, definitely my children, grandchildren, great grandchildren will have it better than me. Then, and if that endures, then you have become a developed society. Because the metric by which you become developed was arrived at on the basis of extremely low population countries. And you have a 140 crore and it may go to 160 crore before it stabilizes, or 150 crore or whatever it stabilizes. Therefore, to say that I should have a $20,000 or $30,000 per capita income, etc., requires $45 trillion of GDP size. But the amount of price you will end up paying to get there in terms of environment or other things may be too high. This is what we are experiencing now in the world in general. And all the levels of debt you may end up accumulating to get there. So in that sense, it's all about I would say, the attitudinal and the mindset shift that is more important, about confidence about the future rather than a particular metric.